Good afternoon, distinguished professors of Sustainable Development Center, University of Abuja. My name is Architect Mlanga John Anyom. I'm here to make a presentation on the topic exploring the feasibility of locally sourced sustainable building materials and technologies for affordable housing in Nigeria. This is an answer to an assignment given by Professor Magaji Sule of the Sustainable Development Center, University of Abuja, on a course with the code SDS 902. The course title is Research Methods and Design. The background to the study. Nigeria faces a staggering shortfall of over 20 million housing units, a critical national challenge with a profound socio-economic implications. That was the report made by Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development in 2024. Rapid urbanization, high population growth standing at 2.6% annually, placing immense pressure on housing, especially in Lagos, Kano, and Abuja. This report was made by National Population Commission in 2024. Heavy reliance on expensive, often imported materials like cement and steel leads to inflated construction expenses, making housing inaccessible for low and middle-income households. There's growing advocacy for sustainable practices within Nigeria, with organizations promoting local materials like stabilized laterite blocks and bamboo composites, which can reduce costs and stimulate local economies. Ahmed and Mohammed. Despite clear advantages, widespread adoption is limited by largely insufficient R&D, absent policy frameworks, scarcity of skilled labor, and inferiority for non-conventional materials. Statement of problem. Nigeria confronts a persistent and escalating housing deficit of over 20 million units, rendering millions without access to decent, safe, and truly affordable accommodation, particularly in urban centers like Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. The current housing delivery relies heavily on expensive, often imported, and energy-intensive materials like Portland cement and steel, leading to inflated construction costs, capital flight, and significant environmental footprint. The national housing crisis deepens, perpetuating socioeconomic inequalities and accelerating environmental degradation, highlighting a critical disjunction between resource and societal demand for sustainable, affordable housing. This study aims to bridge this gap through empirical investigation, research objectives, specific objectives. One, to characterize physical, mechanical, and thermal properties of readily available locally sourced sustainable building materials in Nigeria. To investigate existing and emerging sustainable building technologies and assess their compatibility with locally sourced materials. To conduct a comprehensive comparative cost-benefit analysis of utilizing locally sourced sustainable materials and technologies versus conventional approaches. To assess stakeholders' perceptions, identify challenges, and explore opportunities regarding the adoption of these materials and technologies. To propose evidence-based policy and regulatory frameworks to promote widespread adoption. Significance of the study. The findings of this study will provide benefits for a wide range of stakeholders, for instance, for the government and policymakers. Inform policy and regulations by providing empirical data to formulate policies, regulations, and incentives that can promote research, development, standardization, and widespread adoption of sustainable and locally sourced materials. For manufacturers and suppliers, can identify specific locally sourced materials and technologies with high market potentials, guiding product development, innovations, and investment decisions. For construction companies and developers, it offers pathways to reduce construction costs and improve project viability through the use of affordable local materials. And for artisans and skilled labor, it informs training programs in specialized skills for working with non-conventional materials, and it provides employment opportunities as well. Scope of the study. The study will primarily cover the Nigerian context. The study will also focus on selection of key locally sourced sustainable building materials that are affordable and relevant to housing construction. This includes earth-based materials, for example, stabilized laterite blocks, agricultural waste products like rice husks and palm kernel shells, local timber wood products from sustainably managed forests, recycled materials such as recycled plastic products and local natural fibers for reinforcement or insulation. It also covers sustainable building technologies that can be integrated with these materials for affordable housing, such as passive design strategies, rainwater harvesting systems, and waste management strategies. Methodology. Design and population sample size. Research design. Mixed methods approach, combining quantitative, which is the cross-sectional survey, and qualitative, which is a case study and exploratory design. Quantitative. Gather numerical data on availability, cost usage, perception of materials and technologies, comparative analysis of cost effectiveness. Qualitative. In-depth interviews with experts and stakeholders, focus group discussions FGDs to understand experiences, challenges, and opportunities. Justification. It provides a holistic understanding, combining breadth, which is statistical generalizability, with depth, nuanced insight into why. Then population and size and sample size. Target population. Key stakeholders in Nigeria's building and construction sector. Sample size. Approximately 300 to 400 respondents. Stratified random sampling. 95% confidence and 5% margin error. Methods of data analysis. Quantitative, that is SPSS. Descriptive statistics, K-square, independent sample, t-tests ANOVA, correlation analysis, regression analysis, cost-benefit analysis, quantitative SWOT analysis. Qualitative, thematic analysis, Brown and Clark 2006, for interview and FGD data. Integration, findings from both strands will be synthesized in the discussion to provide a holistic understanding and triangulating results. Ethical and expected outcome. Ethical considerations. There will be informed consent, confidentiality and anonymity of data, objective and transparency reporting on methods and limitations. Expected outcome. Comprehensive feasibility assessment, technical, economic, environmental, social, and policy feasibility of locally sourced materials and technologies. Identification of promising materials and technologies. Specific, viable, and effective options for affordable housing. And also quantification of benefits and challenges. It involved empirical data on cost effectiveness, performance, perceived benefits, and barriers. Then stakeholders' perceptions. An in-depth understanding of attitudes and challenges across various stakeholders groups. Also policy and regulatory gaps. Identification of impediments hindering wider adoption. Evidence-based recommendations. Practical strategies for developers, manufacturers, and training institutions. Contribution to SDGs. Direct contribution to SDG number 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. And SDG number 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructural development. Conclusion. This study findings will be crucial for informing policy reforms, guiding material development, and promoting the widespread adoption of genuinely affordable and environmentally responsible housing solutions, ultimately transforming Nigeria's built environment for a more sustainable future. Thank you.